Okay, so I appreciate not everybody knows me yet. Trust me, you really will get to know me quite quickly. So my name is Kim Rutherford. I am a practicing psychotherapist and I am based in Liverpool. I was sleeved on the 27th of November, so I am 3 weeks in. And the reason I started this group is because, like all of you, I was going to all of the different Facebook groups trying to find the support that I thought I needed. And what I found there realistically was that there was no psychological support, and there was lots of support with people talking about food and weight and all of that kind of stuff. But there was no support with regards to how do I change my habits? How do I change the practices that got me into this? How do I stop being an emotional eater and all of that kind of stuff? And that's really what I knew I needed. So because it didn't already exist and I've got a specific skill set, I decided I would start this group and do that myself. And the reason I wanted to do it as presentations was to make sure that there is information that is not just telling you what to do, but giving you the reason behind it so you understand the why. Because I think the why is really important with regards to why we have to do anything. So that's why I do what I do. I am surviving my 8 weeks, my 2 weeks in. If you notice me looking at funny angles because people are still coming in and I'm just letting them in at the same time. We've covered a few different topics so far, and last week I asked the group what topics they thought we should be covering, what they wanted to be covering, and this week's topic was a big one, so we are covering it, and it's all about stress and the effects that stress have. Now, because a lot of you haven't been here before and you may not have yet seen the first video, it's just to really let you know that everything I do, all of the psychology I use, is based on what is called 8 Whys, which is a psychology model that helps with stress, burnout, anxiety, depression, and all of the different things that come from that. And what's the most interesting thing is, even when it comes to bariatric surgery and weight loss surgery, they still tend to be the big topics: mental health and those underlying issues with regards to it. So everything I do is based on 8 Whys. I'm not going to go into 8 Whys in a lot of detail today because video 1 does explain it a bit more. But if you do want information, you can go to video 1, or you can go to the 8 Whys website, which is www.8whys.co.uk, and it'll explain it a lot more. And you can also go and read the book if you want to as well. So I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail today, because what I want to talk about is stress, and really how stress affects us, and to a degree how stress might have actually got us into the situation we are currently in with regards to our eating habits. So to make it really simple, stress is the feeling of being completely overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. Okay, many different situations or life events can cause stress. Stress comes at us from lots of different angles, so it's not specifically easy to say what exactly causes stress. But it's when something unexpected happens, or when we get a threat to who we are or what we feel, or our lack of control over situations. But it's that overwhelming sense that comes up. Now, ultimately, we all deal with stress very differently, and our ability to cope can depend on all of the usual stuff: genetics, our life events, our personality, and our social and economic circumstances. And based on that bit here, right at the beginning, when I first set up this group, I put personality assessments in the group so you could all go and do them. I'm going to put them back in there again because we've got so many more people join now. It would be really useful if you all go and do the personality assessment, and I will explain why a little bit later on. But your personality can tell you an awful lot about how you manage stress, and if you are prone to having stress as well. So when we encounter any form of stress, our bodies produce a range of different hormones. And what that does then is triggers our fight or flight response system. Now, our flight or flight response system is primal. It's a part of the human species. And I say this every week, human species, the meaning of life is 2 things and 2 things only. It is survival, and we know that because we have an inbuilt system that is primitive to help us survive, and that's the fight or flight response system. And the other side of it is evolution. And because we know this, because our brains are functioning in a way that we can gather information, retain information, and then share it with other people so that the next generation learn and can also survive. And that's the evolution side of it. So when it comes to stress, stress is a key factor in that survival process, the fight or flight response. And it helps us to respond quickly to dangerous situations. Now, back in the day, when, you know, we were hanging out as cavemen and things like that, we needed to be able to respond very quickly to things like, you know, lions, tigers, bears, all the dangers that the environment brought upon us. And in those situations, the way the body reacted was really useful to us. But as we've moved through the modern world, I don't know how many of you are fighting off lions, tigers, and bears every day, but the likelihood is those responses aren't needed in the same way. So what happens is our body holds on to the chemical and the hormone that the body releases, and it just stays with us. And so those overwhelming feelings stay longer. Therefore, too much stress can cause negative effects. It can leave us in permanent stage of fight or flight, which is not healthy, because that leaves us completely overwhelmed and unable to cope. And long term, this is the way that stress affects our physical and our mental health. So although it's a really good thing, and ultimately we've got to have it in order to be a human being to survive, because of the modern world and the way that the primitive stress processes work, we don't need it in the same way, yet it still responds the same way. And therefore we're left with these overwhelming feelings, emotions and physical feelings caused by those chemicals. So stress is primarily a physical response. So it gets triggered in the mind, but it becomes a physical response. The body thinks it's under attack and switches to the fight or flight mode. It releases a complex mix of hormones and chemicals. You've probably heard of them: adrenaline, cortisol, to name but a few. We're going to talk about cortisol a lot today. And what the whole point is it prepares us for physical action. This causes a number of reactions, from the blood being diverted to different muscles, parts of our body shutting down so other parts can work stronger, and our digestion. So it's a very physical response to what's actually happening. But it starts in the brain, and the way that stress is triggered is the same way that anxiety is triggered. So if you are somebody who experiences anxiety, it will be triggered in exactly the same way. Prefrontal cortex, at the front part of the brain, is where you make all your major big decisions. And the only way you can make all your big decisions is if it's able to communicate to the important part of the limbic brain called the hippocampus, which is basically your huge database of all of your daily experiences from the moment you were born to where you are right now. And we record all of our experiences from birth until now visually within the hippocampus. So if I say to you the word tiger, you've now all got an image of a tiger in your head that is relevant to you. None of you will have the same image of a tiger, because all of you have got different experiences with regards to tigers. Some it'll be a tiger on a mug you had as a kid. For some of you, it'll be a tiger that you saw on a book. Some it'll be on a TV. Some it'll be an ornament you've seen. Some it'll be something that you saw in an art gallery or something like that. But you've all got a different visual of a tiger in your head now. Because the way that's happened is I've spoken to you, your prefrontal cortex has listened to what I've said, it's asked the hippocampus what a tiger is, hippocampus has shown you an image, now your brain knows what that tiger is and it can relate to what I'm saying. That process works for absolutely everything, unless for whatever reason your brain suddenly feels like you are in danger, or you are in danger of something happening to you. And when that happens, it turns the amygdala on. And the amygdala is like the bat phone in your brain, basically telling you you're in danger. As soon as the amygdala is switched on, all of those chemicals, all of those hormones are released into your body, so you can then have that physical response to get you out of the danger it perceives you to be in. And again, once upon a time, this process, you'd be running through a field, having a gay old time, loving life. Suddenly a tiger's in front of you. Your brain goes, oh my God, there's a tiger. I know what tigers do. They bob down the road in the other village. Suddenly your amygdala goes off, dum, 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 dum. You're in danger. All of this wonderful chemical goes through. You get pumped up. You get really laser focused. All of this stuff happens to your body, and you can run and get yourself out of that situation or if you're braver, you will fight that tiger and you will survive. Really brilliant, primitive part of our human body. Modern world, sadly, we don't need to do it as much. So the way the brain works is you get that message, comes into your visual cortex, sends the messages to the prefrontal cortex, sets off the amygdala. The amygdala then ultimately sets off everything else. And before you know it, your whole body is responding and reacting to things in a way that no longer feels great. Welcome to stress and anxiety. This is your fight, flight, or freeze mode, and it falls into 4 core categories. Your fight mode. You know when your body goes into fight mode because what tends to happen, your muscles get really tight. This is when you might get that muscle tension, that spasm. It's because what's happening is your body's getting prepared to fight your way out of a situation. A bit like you've been to the gym and worked out for a good hour with the weights. What also happens, you get really hot, your blood pressure rises really quickly, and that's because all of the blood in your body is flooding to those muscles to get them pumped up really quickly. And you get that aggression, you get angry, you get irritable, you get really ready to attack something. Now in the modern world, that looks like an insult. You'll shout at people, you'll scream at people, that anger takes over because you're just trying to get that adrenaline out of the system. So you will be happy to attack someone, confront somebody, or dominate a situation when you go into fight mode. When you go into flight mode, slightly different. This is about getting out of a situation as quickly as you possibly can. Nobody wants to be in a situation that makes them uncomfortable. So when you're in flight mode, in the modern world, you kind of go into denial and anxiousness and get me out of here really quickly. So you evade the situation, you omit the situation, you sabotage a situation so you don't need to be in it anymore. Now, what we've then got is the freeze stage. And the freeze stage is when you go, I surrender, I can't do this. It's just not me, I'm not getting involved. You shut down, you become empty, you feel numbness, you justify what's happening to you, you rationalize what's happening to you, and then you eventually start to detach yourself from the situation. What we're all working towards is face. Face is the healthy space. This is when you can respond challenging something. You are calm, you're grounded, you're alert, you're engaged, and you are decisive. When we feel stressed, for people who are obese or have been obese, the section of this that has been triggered the most is the freeze stage, when we want to detach and numb ourselves from the situation. And the way that we do that is, I don't like what's happening over there, but if I have something over here that makes me feel better, then this doesn't exist anymore. And for this moment, I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm happy, I'm content. And that's when we start to eat to make ourselves feel better. And it's all linked to the freeze stage. Now, stress is normal, and it's something that we're all supposed to experience because it's primitive, but it's really about making sure you manage your stress levels enough so that you don't end up getting yourself into these dysfunctional patterns with stress. So here you've got the standard bucket. If you imagine stress, because life is always happening, it's always going to throw crap at us, isn't it? So because of that, the stress is constantly coming at us, just like the rain or water can flow constantly. And as you see at the bottom of the diagram, you've got these things that are allowing the water to come out. Because as long as you've got something to alleviate the stress cannot become overwhelming. And that's why self-care is so important. And it's why one of the worst things we can ever say to ourselves is, I don't have time for myself. Because every single time you're saying that, you're saying, I am not going to look after myself. I am not going to manage my stress. I am just going to let it all happen to me. I'm just going to go, nothing to do with me. We have to make the time to look after ourselves, to manage our stress so it doesn't overwhelm us too much. Because otherwise we start to get so overwhelmed, it creates this dysfunctional stress cycle. And what happens with a life event happens, could be anything, bad day at work, kids driving you mad, an argument with somebody, could be anything. What it does is it kicks off a negative thinking pattern. Always the thoughts first. We go, oh God, here it is. And if you're in the negative mindset, a lot of those thoughts can start coming back at you. So I shouldn't have done that. I should have said this. I should have been more of this. It's all my fault. As soon as the negative thinking pattern comes in, we start to get the negative feelings. As soon as we get those negative feelings, suddenly we get all the physical symptoms that come with them. The pit of the stomach ache, the palpitations, feeling crap, not wanting to leave the house, all of these kind of horrible physical ways that we feel when we feel and we talk to ourselves in those negative ways. What that then does is trigger a self-defeating behavior. And in this case, we're talking about overeating or eating certain foods because they're the ones that make us feel better. And we go, okay, this is all right. Today, that situation doesn't bother me anymore because my chocolate or my ice cream or my KFC or whatever your beautiful food of choice has now just made you feel great. But then you've got to wake up, and the next day you've got a different life event. And on the top of the life event, what's probably got now is a little bit of guilt from the way that you handled last night. So now you've got the life event plus the guilt. And then it goes to more negative thinking, more negative feelings, more physical symptoms. And how do we respond to it? The way that our memory has told us, that's how we cope. Overeating, eating food, and round and round and round it goes. And this is how we, well, when I say we, I mean the obese community or people who were previously obese tend to have a dysfunctional stress cycle. Hence why stress leads to obesity. So, as I said, everybody's supposed to experience stress. That makes us human. It's a good thing. And short-term stress is quite normal. And if any of you have got those friends who just get, they get stressed and then they just don't eat. My sister's like this. She gets a little bit of stress and she just doesn't eat. And I go, oh God, I wish I could be like her. I'm desperate to be like her. But the fact of the matter is what happens with her, she's only got short-term stress. Because she's got short-term stress, she loses her appetite, because we lose our appetite with short-term stress. She might have lots of stress in the week, but it hits her and she's over it. Hits her and she's over it. That's not quite the same as if you've got chronic stress, which sadly leads us to the complete opposite. So whereas short-term stress produces an appetite-suppressing hormone, it makes our bodies work differently and it suppresses the urge to eat. Ongoing stress releases cortisol, and cortisol increases our appetite. And if the stress doesn't pass, cortisol and appetite, those levels still remain, which means that if the stress is there, the cortisol is there, the increased appetite is there as well. Brilliant, isn't it, being stressed all the time? What a wonderful thing to experience. Now, cortisol stimulates your fat and carbohydrate metabolism. So we crave carbohydrates when we are highly stressed. We're reaching for the pizza and the donuts and the tiger loaf with lots of butter. It's my thing. It's my thing. And it creates this wonderful surge of energy in our bodies, which is really important for survival. But we don't need to fight those tigers anymore. So those cortisol levels, they just leave us craving stuff to make us feel better. Sweets, fatty and salty foods, all of those foods that don't really help us on a physical level. And then on the other side of that, cortisol has a really intricate relationship with insulin. And insulin controls our blood sugar. So when cortisol increases in the body, it can become resistant to insulin. And it's being resistant to insulin that creates the weight gain and, as we know, potentially type 2 diabetes. So if you are somebody who tends to experience chronic levels of stress, and it could just be because you have not yet developed the skills that work for you to manage stress in an effective way for you, it means that the likelihood is your cortisol levels are incredibly high, which means that your insulin levels are really high. So you're craving all the bad foods, you're eating all the bad foods, and then you can't get rid of all of the stuff because your body just resists that process. Hence, you then put on weight. So in a nice, simple way, stress makes you fat. Fact. That's what happens. Sadly, it makes it hard to lose the fat as well. So suddenly we got stressed, we weren't managing it or handling it, or there was just too much going on at one time. That's led to this cortisol increase. That's led to eating all of these foods. That's led to all of this weight going on. And then we go, okay, I want to go on a diet and get rid of it all, but I'm still stressed and I still don't manage my stress. And now the body can't manage getting rid of it because it's now affected you on a physical level, stopping the body from actually losing the losing the fat the way it is. And you will hear me say those words more than lose weight. It's about losing fat. Losing weight is your organs and your water and your blood and all of those other things. Losing fat is losing the extra. The stuff we want to get rid of is the fat, not the weight. So what happens when you are highly stressed? It intensifies the hunger cravings, as we've said. It slows your metabolism by suppressing your thyroid production. It drains all of your energy, so you're too tired then to do the other great stuff like eat healthy, go to the gym, do exercise, or whatever it is. It interferes with your sleep, so you either have an issue falling asleep or staying asleep. And then if you can't sleep, you can't rest, you can't reboot, you will continue to feel exhausted. And it makes it difficult to keep any long-term goals in the forefront of your mind because your prefrontal cortex isn't functioning well. So ultimately, stress is a bitch, fact, and we have no option but to learn to manage it. And the key way to learning to manage it is starting to understand where your core stress triggers come from. Now, when we look at triggers as an overarching topic, ultimately, most of our stress is triggered through 6 core areas. Academic stress or occupational stress, work stress. We spend so much time in work, it's not really surprising that it's the place that creates a lot of our stress. Social stress, so coming from friends, do I want to go out, do I not want to go out, going to places I don't want to go to, getting involved in all of the stuff that comes from being social with people and having lots of friends, etc. The stress of family, let's be honest, most of our stress probably comes from family, especially this time of the year. It's the stress of, am I seeing people, am I not seeing people, is there arguments, have I got kids, am I managing, and this is my part, it's all partners and everything. It's such a big family thing. So stress, big trigger when it comes to families. World events, classic example, this is COVID, a world event that created probably more stress in the last 2 years than any of the other things that are on this list. Traumatic life events, so things that have been experienced either then now, you experience traumatic events now, or something that's been traumatic in the past and you've not yet been able to process it or work through it, and therefore it continues to trigger. And then significant life changes. I wonder how many of us are going through a significant life change at this moment in time. And therefore the significant life change in itself also causes the stress. And wouldn't it be great if we only had to deal with one of these at once? But let's be realistic at the moment. Most people are working. If they're not, so we know work stress is constantly happening. Peer stress is constantly happening. And obviously world stress is constantly happening at the moment with COVID, which then affects peer stress. Families are families. Nothing's ever going to run smoothly in a family. So that's always going to happen. If we're lucky at this moment in time, if we haven't had a traumatic life event. But it's pretty rare that somebody gets through life and doesn't have some form of trauma. So at one period of time, you can have all of these being triggered dramatically at you all the time. It's not surprising that we then experience chronic stress. So what we have to learn to do is break it down and start to problem solve and resolve things one at a time if we can, rather than be overwhelmed in trying to problem solve everything. So for you guys, it's really important that you understand your very specific stress triggers. And there are 12 of them to look at. So you've got your emotional stressors. These are your fears, these are your worries, and they're very unique and they're very individual to you because they're based on your condition mindset, based on your life experiences to date.
Don't forget the kids.
God bless the kids and all of us who made decisions to have them. You could read, I'm kidding, kids are great when they're someone else's. So family stresses, so your relationships, your financial problems, and there they are, the beautiful children. Social stressors, so other people and the situations that other people put upon us. Change stressors, so any important changes in our lives. Chemical stressors, so drug abuse, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, these all cause a change in our body and they change our mind, creating stress. Work stress, so the pressure of performing in the workplace, whether you're at home working or you have to go into work. We're looking at the decision stressors, so having to make important decisions such as what we've all been talking about today. What are the right food choices? That's a daily stress. That's a couple of hours stress for some of us. Phobic stressors, so these are ultimately those things we're afraid of, such as flying, confined spaces, all of that kind of stuff. Physical stressors, so working long hours without enough sleep, depriving yourself of healthy food, ultimately not looking after yourselves. Then we get the disease stressors, so long or short-term health problems. Now, these types of things can either be caused by stress or they cause stress. So IBS, for example, tends to be triggered by stress. So it's aggravated by stress, as are migraines and headaches. But both of those things can create added stress as well. We've got the pain stressors, so chronic pain. So like disease, pain stressors can be either aggravated by stress, so they can either be caused by stress or they can cause the stress. And then finally, we've got environmental stressors, such as noise, pollution, a lack of space, too much heat or too much cold. So these are the core 12 stressors, all 12 there. So emotional, family, social, change, chemical, work, decisions, phobics, physical, diseases, pain, and environmental. And you go, oh, that's great. These are these things. They're all probing me all the time. They're all triggering me. But how do I know if they're creating my stress too much? Are they making my stress levels too high? Well, then you need to also know what the signs of your stress are. Stress symptoms tend to fall into 4 core categories: emotional, cognitive, physical, and behavioral. So when it comes to emotional, what you're trying to look for is those emotions that you're feeling strongly and regularly. So fear, anger, nervousness, irritableness, sadness, loneliness, hopelessness, moodiness, and worry. Which is why I strongly recommend that people are using the emotions wheel on a regular basis to check in with what emotions they are feeling, to give you some idea of how you are feeling and whether it's stress related. When it comes to cognitive, we're looking at, are you having repeat thoughts about a situation? You find that your brain is in a loop, overthinking the same thing over and over again. Do you find you get confused quite easily? Are you indecisive, a lack of concentration, loss of confidence, or poor memory? When you're looking at the physical, we're looking at that constant feeling of sick, rapid breathing, stomach aches, which I appreciate at the moment. It's not an easy one to decipher, because we're like, well, is that just because I've eaten my hummus? Or is that because actually I'm really stressed today? So look at the other ones. It'd be easy to look at the other ones. So a fast heartbeat, because our heart rate's gone up. The sweating, shaking, dizziness, muscle tension is a really big symptom. Headaches, fatigue, dry mouth. Again, I appreciate right now, whilst we're doing this process, dry mouth can be a regular occurrence as well. And a tightness in our chests. And then we've got the behavioral categories as well. So a lack of sleep, a change in our appetite, whether it's up or down, nervous habits, increased drinking, smoking, or caffeine, and avoiding situations. So as soon as you stop answering the phone to your friends, not wanting to go and see people, finding excuses not to go to anywhere, that's starting to tell you that you're a little bit too overwhelmed and you're trying to almost go into that freeze moment and disassociate from the world around you. So it's important to know your triggers, and it's important to be able to constantly check in with yourself to identify, do I have these symptoms? What am I going to do about it? And the way you're going to deal with it is through stress management. So step 1, elimination. So when it comes to a simple one, you've got to eliminate foods in the diet that are high in fat and high in sugar. Why? Because they're triggering your cortisol, which is triggering your insulin levels, which is causing you major stress on the body. You then need to exercise. So ultimately, if you exercise vigorously, your cortisol levels rise even higher. So the key to exercise with trying to lose weight and manage your stress is actually going slower. So it's about introducing gentle exercise, which is why everybody's talking about do your 10,000 steps, do yoga, go swimming, because it's gentle exercise. They're actually really good for mindfulness. It's a really good process for working every single part of your body, but looks after your mind at the same time. So it de-stresses you and goes towards weight loss or fat loss. Step 3 is meditation. So there are so many studies that show that meditation decreases stress, because what it does is it just gives the brain a break. And sometimes it's what we need. We just need a break. When I'm highly stressed, it's almost like constant. I want to chop my head off, stick it under a tap, clean it out and put it back on. That's how it makes me feel. And so meditation is a really good way of helping to do the cleaning process without cutting your own head off, which I highly recommend you do not do. So one of the best apps I recommend to everybody, two apps I recommend, Headspace app if you can, because what that does is teach you to meditate. It teaches you to do it in 10 steps that are free, and you can choose the time, whether it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I recommend it's a very good one. And the Calm app, because the Calm app will teach you it as well, but then the Calm app has got a lot more resource in it for other things as well. So I would recommend they are two apps that you have on your phone if you can. But what's great for meditation, it can make you more alert to what's happening to your body, which can make you more alert about things such as what are the healthiest foods I should be having. So some of this decisiveness we've got around about food is probably because we're stressed at the minute about, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm really scared of stretching things, breaking things, putting all the weight back on. We're worried about all of those things causing us so much stress. So if we can get into a habit of clearing that away, our bodies and our mind will tell us naturally what is the right thing for us to be doing. And then step 4 is you need to have emotional support. We are pack animals. We are not supposed to wander through this world on our own. We need support from our friends, our family, groups like this. And research shows that those individuals who work, people who work along, or who work on their own trying to manage things, tend to fail more than those people who work in a group environment, which is why, as I said, I want this group to be somewhere that is a safe space for you to be able to do all of this stuff, because everybody in this group should be like-minded, trying to help each other and want to do it for themselves as much as they do for someone else as well. So those are the key areas for stress management. And they look a bit like this. So meditation and deep breaths, and what I'm actually going to do, because it won't just help you with stress, it'll help you with anxiety as well. I'm going to do some short videos over the next few days. So I'm going to do some videos on the specific breathing exercises that you can do, the shorter ones and the longer ones. When it comes to exercise, start with your walking and build up from there. Get outside as much as you can. I know it's pissing it down raining all the time at the moment, but if you can get outside in nature, nature is a natural relaxer because we're part of nature. So if you can get out there for walks outdoors rather than in a gym all the time, you're in a better way. Get as much sleep as you can. So if you're struggling with your sleep, that's definitely a place to start. If you are struggling with your sleep, then get in touch. And what I will do is send you a sleep diary, and we can start to have a look at what your pattern of sleep is like, and I can recommend where you might want to make some changes. Join a social club. Join something for fun. Don't make your whole life about this process, because you are more than this process. This process is about helping you live a better life. To start finding what that better life is going to be. Reduce caffeine and reduce sugar and reduce alcohol. And the reason for this is because they're stimulants. Now, if you think about when you're highly stressed, you're already highly stimulated. So you don't want to be adding more into it and raising up those levels even more. And get organized. Make your tasks, set your tasks, get your routines in place, and have that level of control of your day-to-day. They are the best areas to start when it comes to stress management, because you can do practical, tangible activities with regards to all of these that will have an immediate effect. And then it's all about that self-reflection time. You've got to have that self-reflection time. So this is the emotion wheel. What you've got there is a lovely wheel with about 123 emotions on it. The concept being that what tends to happen is you see all of the ones that are in the center of the circle. They tend to be the ones that we use the most to explain how we're feeling. But actually, we need to be a bit more specific with regards to how we're feeling to understand what triggered it. Because when we know what's triggered something, we then know what we have to problem solve. So if somebody was working with me and a client came in, one of the first things I ask most clients is, how are you feeling? And a client might say, oh, I'm feeling a bit fearful still, a bit scared, for example. And I'll go, can you be more specific? And they'll go, okay, well, I'm feeling anxious today, because that's the next level out. Okay, when you look at the wheel, when it comes to anxiousness, are you feeling overwhelmed or are you feeling worried? Two different things. And they might say to me, well, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Okay, so overwhelmed, what today is making you feel overwhelmed? And they might go, well, actually, someone else is supposed to pick the kids up from school today. I've got to do it on top of doing all of this work. The house is a mess. And suddenly you get all of that come out. From having all of that, you suddenly understand, right, my trigger today is I feel out of control. What can I do today to take back some form of control? Because that will change me from being overwhelmed. That will reduce my anxiety. I won't feel fearful anymore. And that's how you use that wheel. And I recommend that people use this regularly. It's a great way to check in with how you're feeling and talk to yourself. But it's also a really good way of just keeping an eye on what's going on, specifically through this process. We know this process is up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's really good as a journal, in my favorite word, as a journal and as a way of just checking in. How did I feel throughout all of this process? And have I felt any of these things before at different times in this process, and what was triggering them then? So self-care through the emotions wheel is really important, and self-care through looking after your wellness and well-being with self-care activities. So this is with regards to the 8 Whys Wellness in total. Again, if you go onto the 8 Whys website, you can actually complete some assessments there that will let you know what your current wellness level is against each of the 8 categories of wellness. From that, what you identify is what your lowest ones are. When you know what your lowest ones are, they're the ones you have to start focusing on improving first. So for example, if you scored really low and you only scored between 1 and 8, so say for example you scored a 2 on social wellness, you go, right, I need to improve my social wellness. So these are the types of things you need to think about. You need to think about, where am I going to get some support from? How can I connect to my community? How can I become more assertive? How can I improve my communication? How can I do things that make me laugh more and have more fun? And all of those types of things you need to think about when you're trying to improve your social, for example. Or you might find, actually right now my emotional wellness is really low, so I need to do some stress and anxiety management. I maybe need to boost my emotional intelligence, build my self-esteem, make sure I'm getting some really good relaxation in. That's how you start to manage things on a day-to-day basis and get a really good balance. So with regards to that, as I said, you can go onto the 8 Whys website. All of the tools on there are for free, not charging anybody anything. There's about 8 different assessments. There is action plans on there. There's so much on there that you can use to help you build this stuff up. So use it, it's free for you. And then the key to it all is being able to create your own overall wellness strategy that helps you manage your stress. So when it comes to your emotional wellness, track your emotions, try mindfulness, breathing and relaxation activities and techniques. When it comes to your physical wellness, eat healthy, know what healthy is for you. I've learned that I don't think I can do dairy anymore, so dairy is no longer healthy for me. But for someone else, healthy means dairy. So eat healthy, get the right levels of exercise you need in for you and your lifestyle and your health, get your sleep in, stay hygienic. Then you've got your spiritual wellness, connect with yourself, do this self-reflection. Through this weight loss process, it's almost like you become a different person. You see the pictures people put out there and they all say the same thing. I don't recognize the person I was. But does that mean that they understand who they are now? Because that's the important bit. Otherwise we get pulled back to being that other person. It's about reconnecting with the new you and letting go of the old one. That's about building confidence and routines and identifying core values and beliefs and living a life that manifests them into it. Then we're looking at your intellectual wellness. This is about growing and stretching that comfort zone, because again, when we pull back to old habits, it's because we're going back to our comfort zone. The only way to stop ourselves from going back to that comfort zone is create a better one, or stretch your comfort zone to include new things that stay a part of your regular habits. We're also looking at environmental wellness. And environmental wellness is about making sure that you're getting outdoors, as well as creating those safe environments that bring out the best in you. On a social level, you should be thinking about staying connected with friends, family, colleagues, and be okay about talking openly about problems that you might be experiencing. Money causes us so much stress, and it's one of the biggest stresses in the Western world. So manage your money effectively and reduce unnecessary spending if you can. And then finally, we've got this occupational wellness one here, which is manage the stress that's happening in the workplace. Speak up if you've got issues, and develop self-care routines that help you balance your work and life. I like to think of it as called, you've got to stay in credit. And what I mean by stay in credit means you've got to commit to developing your own stress management toolbox. This doesn't come naturally. This isn't something you wake up knowing how to do. You have to consciously put the discipline in place to actually create something that's going to help you for the rest of your life. You've got to recognize that this is a very clear and important message, you are as important as anyone else. To be honest, in your life, you are the most important person in it. And even if you've got children, I know this is going to freak you out when I say it, but even if you've got children, you still have to be the most important person in your own life. Because if you're not, you won't be around long enough to be able to look after those children. So you've got to recognize that you are as important as others, if not the most important person. Experiment and find the best coping strategies and self-care plans for you. There is no one set that works for everybody. You know, if you go onto all the wellness websites, they say pretty much the same things. It's generic. It doesn't mean it will work for you. I could sit here and go, everybody should do yoga. If you hate yoga, it's not going to work for you. If you hate yoga, yoga creates stress. So you've got to find the things that work for you. Be open-minded to try new things. Develop new skills to maintain your stress levels. Identify your stressors and take action to address them. And finally, talk to someone early if you can, if you feel like things are getting too much. The longer you hold things in, the worse it will get. And the longer you hold things in, the bigger impact it will have on your mental health. And if your mental health gets impacted, then your physical health gets impacted. So ultimately, talk to someone as quickly as you can when you can feel things getting a little bit out of hand. So stay in credit when it comes to looking after yourselves, your wellness, your well-being, and your stress levels. So in summary, stress is part of your primal survival system. It's normal. Being stressed is normal. Experiencing stress is normal. It's normal until it becomes chronic and leads to dysfunctional coping strategies such as binge eating, overeating, focusing on your foods on the wrong food intake. It's important to be able to identify your stress symptoms so you know your stress levels are becoming too high. It's important to be able to identify your specific stressors in your life. You need to be able to implement healthy and effective strategies for managing your specific stress levels. You need to manage stress because you want to stop the weight loss. It's that simple. For where you're at and where we're at right now, we want to have a really good process of not just losing however much we want to lose, but also maintaining it afterwards. The stress will be a blocker for that. Managing stress effectively can prevent weight gain. So if you don't manage your stress, it can lead to weight gain. If you manage it effectively, it can help you lose it. Like I said, focus on the fat loss when it comes to the weight side of things, not just the overall weight. That number on the scale is representing so much more than the fat on your body. And therefore the number really never really tells you what's really going on. So I'm going to set you an assignment today. It's the first time I've set an official assignment, but I'm setting it because I think this is an important one. So obviously you do the assignment if you choose to. You don't have to send it in to me. There is no, you don't get bad grades or anything like that. I don't kick you out the group if you don't do it, but there's no point learning this stuff if you don't do anything with it. And your assignment is this. Using the list of the 12 stress triggers that I talked about earlier on, list all of them that you know are your stress triggers. When you've listed yours, then what you've got to do is work out how you can reduce the impact of them on your life. So when you put your list together, you've got your list in front of you, you're going to go through all of the list, and everything on the list you're going to mark with a certain letter. You're going to mark it for an E if it's something that can be eliminated. So something that is just popped up today, but it'll be gone tomorrow, you don't have to worry about it. You can eliminate it. You put an R next to it for anyone that you think you can reduce the strength of the stress. And you put a C next to anything where you think you can learn to cope with the stress linked to that particular situation, i.e. children, for example. You're going to have to learn to cope with that because I think, tell me if I'm wrong, it's illegal to eliminate them. And therefore it's best if you learn to cope with them. Okay. And then finally what you've got to do is when you've put your letter next to all of your stressors, have a look at the ones that are marked with an E and an R, and start to develop practical steps that you can take that starts to eliminate them. That then reduces the ones that are causing you problems, and it puts you back in control. And what it really does then is it helps you to create a stress buster strategy. The most important part of this for you right now is understanding what in your life right now is causing you the stressors. When you've done that, have a think about before surgery or way before surgery, before you made the decision about this. Did those stressors, did they all exist then as well? If they do, that's telling you a pattern of behavior. That pattern of behavior led you to this situation you're in now. So if you don't want to go back to it, you need to eliminate those stressors that existed before. It's the only way to do this. So like I said, everything that I talk about is based on this concept of learning how to balance all 8 areas of your wellness spectrum, because if you can do that, you can then basically improve your mental health and your mental well-being and prevent longer-term mental health issues and longer-term physical health issues. And when it comes to stress, stress affects all 8 of them. It affects you on emotional levels, it affects you physically, it affects your self-belief in yourself and your self-esteem, so that's your spiritual. It affects your comfort zone and your stimulation levels and your energy levels, which ultimately comes down to intellectual. It affects the environments that you're in, because a lot of time it's coming from the environments that you're in, so it affects environmental wellness. A lot of it comes from people, and therefore it affects the way you interact with people and communicate with people, which means it affects you on a social level. It's either coming from work or you take it to work with you. So it's occupational and financial as well. So ultimately, stress affects every area of our wellness, which is why it dominates our lives so much. So for us, those of us who are obese, those of us who are overeaters, those of us who eat our stress away, those who are binge eaters, all of this, we need to learn to manage the stress to help us manage the rest of it. This is the core habit. Stress itself is not a mental health issue, but it is a gateway to most mental health issues. And therefore, if we can eliminate the stress, we know we've got a good mentally healthy life ahead of us. So as I said, all of this, I've just left this slide up there, but some of you might not have seen it before. So yes, I wrote a book. There's the book. I also created a journal for it and a 12-month planner for it and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do the hard sell. The book is available. If you want it, you can go to the website and access it there. If you want any information on it, you can contact me directly. And that, my lovelies, is the end. I did put a message out in the group this week because some people started contacting me from last week's session, which is people were asking if they can get one-to-one therapy with me if they want to go private. And I said, yes, I can happily do that for people if they choose to have it. And yes, I will give you a discounted price as long as you are in this Facebook group, because I'm not the cheapest person out there. I won't lie to you. It's because I'm an integrative therapist who uses a wider range. So I've got a slightly wider skill set. That's the reason. But I will give everybody a dramatic discount if it's something you want and you're in this group. So that is the end of that. I hope you have found that useful. I am going to just stop recording now. So bye everybody who's watching on video. Catch you at the next one.